So there's a new Harvard poll out that shows that 65% of Americans want the Democrats to end the shutdown. And a whole lot of pro Trump commentators are going to town and celebrating the political hit the Democrats are taking. Here's how the National Republican Campaign Committee covered it. But here's what they're not telling you, they're not telling you what's buried in the rest of the poll data. And if you miss that, you will miss how the globalists are going to use it to try and put the Democrats back in control in 2026. And their plan includes a sophisticated psychological warfare campaign being run by the top levels of the British elite. Now, it is true that Donald Trump is owning the Democrats right now on the shutdown, but the shutdown will be resolved sooner or later. And for now, the Democrats will take the hit. But we are still a long way from November 2026, and the empire has a plan. I'm Susan Kokinda, and I've tracked American political developments for over 50 years, including spending more than a decade in Washington, D.C., working directly with Congress. And what you see on the surface there, the headlines, the press conferences, the hearings, they don't tell you the real story. The real story is being written by the British imperial elite, who are orchestrating a sophisticated psychological warfare campaign to break apart Trump's winning coalition. Now, if you're getting a sense that this is going to be a different take than what you're hearing elsewhere, please like and subscribe. But here's a taste of what they have in store. This is a headline that the liberal patriot hopes you will see in 2026. Rust Belt insurgents clinch Democrats' House takeover, repair blue wall. Now, that's their fantasy, but it's based on a very real strategy to systematically dismantle the coalition that delivered Trump's historic victory. Not only are we going to expose this strategy, but we're going to show you how to defeat it. So in today's update, I'm going to look at these two key elements of their plan. First, how they will try and recapture the blue-collar vote in the swing states and turn it into Democratic votes. And second, how they're using a classic British divide-and-conquer strategy to ignite religious tensions within Trump's movement. So let's look at that hidden data in that Harvard poll. Yes, 65% want the Democrats to end the shutdown. But dig a little deeper, and you'll find that the number one issue on people's minds is inflation by a very wide margin. 43% say it's issue number one. The next issue comes in way down at 12%. So inflation is the number one issue, and this is what the Democrats plan to do with it. The poll found that 55% think it is Trump's policies that will make inflation worse, with only 29% thinking Trump's policies will decrease inflation. Look at that big blue blob on that chart. That's the 55% that think Trump is going to make inflation worse. Now, polls are notoriously easy to rig. And if anyone doesn't think a poll coming out of Harvard has a political bias, they haven't been paying attention to Trump's smackdown of that university. But out in the real world, we are running into inflation fears in our organizing out in the streets and at political meetings. And we heard it yesterday in a very interesting place from a Republican staffer on Capitol Hill. Now, Promethean Action has sent a team of organizers to Washington, D.C. to meet with members of Congress and their staff and to discuss the importance of Trump's full economic policy. I received a report from the team last week, which does confirm that it is tough out there. A staffer in the office of a conservative Midwestern senator described how small businesses in their state are being slammed by tariffs because they can't yet get parts made in the United States, and that farmers are also reeling while trade deals are in flux. And that explains why the Harvard poll also showed that 58% think Trump's tariffs policies are hurting the economy. Now, again, put in a big grain of salt there on polling, but it is true that not enough Americans understand how and why tariffs work. The British financial oligarchy knows this is a vulnerability. The Financial Times, which has been the mouthpiece of the City of London for over a century, is already preparing the narrative, as you can see. They say, the U.S. president cannot prevent the pain of his protectionist agenda indefinitely, and the midterm elections are looming. And they've played up Republicans' concerns about tariffs, with this headline about Ted Cruz warning that tariffs risk sparking a GOP wipeout in the 2026 elections. Thanks, Ted. But why is this so important? A critical part of the MAGA coalition that won in 2024 is blue-collar workers. We saw historic shifts into Trump's column. And those headlines show that the British are tracking this very closely and trying to pull off that key part of the MAGA movement. Now, Democrats, especially in the Rust Belt, are being told to exploit that. The Liberal Patriot profiles some Midwestern Democratic congressional candidates who are steering away from the most radical, woke, and open border policies of the AOCs and the Gavin Newsoms. These Democrats are running on the message, well, even if you like Trump, and probably even if you still hate us, his economic policies aren't yet helping you and you're hurting. But stop and think about it. Who's delaying Trump's policies from taking effect? Well, number one, the Federal Reserve, which has held back on lowering interest rates and which continues to starve productive investment in favor of financial profit. Two, the courts, where Obama and Biden appointed judges are waging warfare against his economic policies, especially tariffs. And pretty much all of the Democrats in Congress, plus a few of those libertarian-leaning Republicans who are still infected with British free trade ideology. Now, despite all of that sabotage, Trump's policies are working. Shovels are in the ground, manufacturing is coming back, investment is starting to pour in. Promethean Action's organizers are delivering that message to Congress with a bang. By the end of the week, every office will have received a copy of our new flyer, and we'll put a link to it in the description. But we are also finding that even among the president's Republican supporters, few understand the truly revolutionary nature of what Trump is doing, that he is reviving the American system of economics, which prioritizes production and growth, not the financial speculation and accounting of what is properly called the British system. So we and you have a big job to do in Congress and with the American people. That is why joining Promethean Action is so important. We're out there to educate and organize, whether it's from the halls of Congress or to Main Street. So please subscribe or become a paying member so that we can expand this activity. But the effort to peel off Trump's blue-collar support is just one front. There's a more sinister front emerging. And it features none other than George Soros and the British deliberately trying to create religious schisms in the Trump movement, right at the moment when Trump is proving that such deeply embedded conflicts can be overcome with his breakthrough peace plan in the Mideast. This is psychological warfare at its most sophisticated. So on the one hand, you have the British continuing their drumbeat, claiming that Trump is anti-Semitic. As Barbara outlined on Monday, The Guardian attacked Trump as being anti-Semitic for calling for an investigation of George Soros. So keep track here. They're saying Trump is anti-Semitic. On the other hand, you see the crescendoing coverage by many influencers in the Trump universe claiming that Trump and his administration are run by Netanyahu and the Jews. We get this every week in comments to our videos in our live Q&A sessions. And if people are falling for it, they haven't been paying attention to what we've developed about how the British put the Jews up front to cover for their crimes. But that's not all. The Psy Warriors are also whipping up anti-Muslim sentiment in the United States. They're using, in particular, a recent incident where the super-liberal mayor of Dearborn, Abdullah Hammoud, publicly told a non-Muslim resident that he wasn't welcome in Dearborn. That is blown up on social media, and the narrative that the Muslims are taking over is off and running once again. Now, what's truly diabolical about this operation, this is all being fueled by forces outside of Dearborn. One of the major political forces which shapes the narrative in Dearborn and stirs the pot is a nonprofit called Engage, which bills itself as a Muslim political and civil rights organization. Well, guess what? Engage is substantially funded by George Soros's Open Society Foundation. And that's not all. One of the other foundations which provides major support for Engage features one Baroness Mary Goody, of the British House of Lords on its board. And don't forget, this is the same House of Lords which deemed Donald Trump an existential threat to the US-UK special relationship back in 2018. So think about this for a moment. The nominally Jewish George Soros is funding a left-wing Islamic organization that's feeding into an atmosphere of sectarian tension in the United States. Meanwhile, intelligence PSY operatives are simultaneously fueling both anti-Semitic and anti-Muslim sentiment designed to split apart the very coalition that delivered Trump's victory, especially here in Michigan. This is exactly how the British maintained control over India for 200 years. They funded different religious and ethnic groups, playing them against each other. They did it in Ireland with Protestants and Catholics. They did it in the Middle East with Arabs and Jews. And now they're doing it in America with the very MAGA coalition that threatens their global financial and political control. So there you have it, the real story behind the Harvard poll that has so many celebrating. Yes, the Democrats are getting crushed on the shutdown right now, but that's just the opening act in the battle for 2026. What I've shown you today is the empire's two-pronged assault on the coalition that delivered Trump's historic victory. First, they're betting they can convince working Americans to abandon economic nationalism at the first signs of pain that the globalists themselves are deliberately inflicting. Second, they're running the oldest trick in the imperial playbook: divide and conquer, trying to split Muslims, Christians, and Jews apart, when Trump is proving that such unity is not only possible, but it can solve conflicts that have been fanned for centuries. Now, here's what the globalists don't count on: you, an awakened American population that understands their game, which is why you should subscribe to Promethean Action's newsletter. Because when you know their strategy, you can defeat it. When working Americans understand that the economic transition will have growing pains, but that's the only path back to prosperity, they won't be fooled by desperate Democrats promising quick fixes that will lead right back to decline. When Americans of all backgrounds see through the manufactured religious tensions, they won't take the bait. The 2024 coalition wasn't just a political victory. It was a revolution. Blue-collar workers, young people, urban minorities, Muslims, Christians, Jews, united around economic nationalism and peace. That coalition is still there. It's still strong. And if we stay informed, stay united, and keep our eyes on the real prize, rebuilding America as a manufacturing superpower, no amount of British psychological warfare can break it. The empire may be playing for 2026, but we're playing for the next century. So stay focused, stay mobilized. This has been your midweek update. Thanks for watching.
Please take a moment and subscribe to our free newsletter at prometheanaction.com.